exploding on the raid. So, any other questions? Okay, sounds good. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the next boss. Next boss we're gonna go through is Demonic Inquisition, and this is more of a Destruction Warlock's dream fight. It is I don't know, a pretty fun encounter. It's basically, melee friendly, melee not friendly. Essentially, there are two bosses. There is Atragan and what's his name? Atragan and Belak. One is basically a whirlwinding guy. He's melee unfriendly. The other one here is Belak. He's just casting his shit all day long. This is where you want your melee on. And of course, if you're a Daughter class or a Destruction Warlock where you can have two beautiful targets to attack all day long, fantastic. Really no AoE here. I mean, besides multi-targets, it's two big bosses with a shared health pool you'll be killing. And this one has an extra action button ability as well. So the biggest thing on Demonic Inquisition is that there is a one central mechanic, and that's Torment. And it's typical energy. If you guys remember doing Cho'Gall, if you guys remember doing, what are some other good energy bosses? I'm trying to think, Atramedes. There must have been one recently too where we used Xavius. Xavius is another one. The more torment you have, the worse off you're going to be, and eventually you have to confess your sins and be cleansed of torment and come back to the other realm. So yeah, it's a lot like the Xavius debuff. If you have too much, you're a jackalope and you need to clear it. And you sort of see here what's going on. So Atragan is the one that is tanked by a tank. And here we see so here's the other ability. So once you have high enough torment, you can see here on this bar, whoever this was, he has his torment bar in the bottom middle section. With the bottom middle section, you get teleported into Belak's cell. You'll see some guilds using 3 tanks for this, or 2 tanks, depending on what it is, but cycling through them periodically, because now you can't stay in here forever, because there was a stacking debuff on, and some guilds did that as well. And nobody expected the Demonic Inquisition, except everybody. You'll see little balls spawn here. So there, you see the little ball in the back. You need to run over these balls. So once your torment gets high enough, you hit your extra action button. If you guys remember the Shadow Pen Monastery boss, the very last one, you got your evil karma to really high. You have to sit down and confess to drop it down, right? Similar style thing here. Your torment gets really high. You hit the extra action button, you get put into the cage, and you run over these balls. Run over the balls. He's going to run over the balls, and then it's going to drop his torment down there. So there he's actually running over them, and not the other friends. So one dropped it down a little bit, then the other one as well. Different abilities here on different bosses. We're going to go through them step by step. So let's go through our Zarania notes. Demonic Inquisition. The first one is Atragan. He has a couple different abilities. The first one is the Scythe Sweep. So the Scythe Sweep is basically a big frontal attack. Super easy. That was calcified quills coming. But yeah, it's a super easy ability. Don't have the boss facing the rest of the raid. Big frontal conal attack. There's the bone sweep there. It's just one big sweep across. Basically don't stand in front. Calcified quills is the other one. So that's a pretty straightforward tank mechanic. You guys know, as tanks, never to face things toward a raid unless the mechanic specifically specifies it. For instance, like on Maiden of what's her name in Tomb of Sargeras. Okay, this is the Calcified Quills ability, and again, a little bit harder to see, but he does target on tank. Don't stand in that cone. It's a big sort of conal attack as well. There's a side sweep again. And you can see here the tank is on the left side, taking away from the rest of the raid. Nobody is over there. And as this entire left section is going to be reserved for the tank to deal with Atragan's Bone Storm ability. And you'll see it again here. So, what's his name had the Bone Storm ability. This one has Bone Saw ability. And the Bone Saw ability looks like this. And you'll see the tank kiting him to the left side there. Before he gets teleported down, and if he gets teleported down, then the other tanks gets threat on him. Hopefully he had enough threat, and you use one side of the room to coordinate his whirlwind. Again, casters for the most part can be on him. They can be split. It doesn't really matter. This again will be a great multi-target fight for those caster classes. So that's it for Atrigan for the most part. Belak has a couple of fun little abilities. Pangs of Guilt is the first one. Here, this one is just make sure you interrupt it. It's super easy. You'll have to set up some kind of interrupt rotation for him. And again, we always recommend redundant interrupt systems. So rather than like, hey, rogue, ret, warrior interrupting, it's both rogues, it's the ret and the enhancement shaman, and then it's the warrior and the demon hunter, however you want to set up those interrupts. But always try to have redundant systems. There's the pangs interrupted. It's one big cast. Have an interrupt rotation of 3 with backups because he casts it so frequently. The other ability is his Fell Squall. Basically, when he does this, this is stop DPS on him, switch to Atrigan. This is the, what's it called? The sort of big reflect mechanic on him. Where is it? Fell Squall. This is basically Belak's Whirlwind. Don't be near him, don't attack him while he does this. Otherwise, you get a lot of torment. So if you continue to attack him, similar thing is, the Botanist Trash. The Botanist Trash, where it puts reflecting on you, where you're DPSing, stop attacking on him entirely. There's the Echoing Anguish. Suffocating Dark is the other ability here that Belak casts. And you'll see a Void Zone spawn. Don't drop him in a good spot. Sorry, in a bad spot, right? So in a bad spot would be, on top of your melee, for instance. And you can see here that your screen goes red with a lot of torment. But don't drop those Void Zones in a bad spot. Ideally put them in the back section of the room so your players have a lot more room to maneuver. If possible, it's going to slow you down as well. Yeah, so don't hit Belak during his Squall. Void Zones, drop them off as far away from you can. And then use the left side of the room for Atrigan and as a Whirlwind, and just let him use the... I wish I could draw here for you guys, but the left side cone. Let me pull it up here. Where is my Atrigan... Demonic Inquisition here. So you can sort of see the same kind of thing here. On the right side there, these are sort of our own guild strats. You will see Atrigan on the purple side. He's going to be just kited around the left side there, counterclockwise. Bone Saw, then return back to diamond starting position. Belak tanked by blue. And the other big thing is do not drop shit at the star marker. That star marker is super important because when you come out of the cage, that is where you're going to be teleported to. Every single person. So if you're a friggin' jackalope and you decide to drop all that shit by star marker, then your raid's going to die. So don't do that. And again, the ad down below needs to be tanked for the cage confession period. Yeah, this is the other debuff here that needs to be dispelled, and then it explodes. And again, you see it is a fairly spread encounter. You will not want to be stacking this one. You want to stagger your players as much as possible. Good 5-8 yard spreads. Unfortunately, shamans, you will not be stacking on this one. So, yeah, there we go. But again, it's a pretty fun encounter. It's similar mechanics to what we've seen in the past. Yeah, I mean, it'll be good. It'll be stay spread, drop shit in a good spot. You can see these guys running out to the right side there to get dispelled, and that ability as well. But I think that's it for the most part. I mean, there's unavoidable raid damage. Don't stand in the bone storms. When Fell Squall happens, this one's really, really important for all your players that you guys will have to get across. Right? This one right here. When Belak is casting Fell Squall, stop attacking to him, switch to Atrigan. It is a full swap. Don't be a scumbag DPS because you'll get more torment. The more torment you get, then you have to go down below. So your players that are, either really unlucky or the players that are doing really poorly are going to get full torment. The full torment gives you a massive debuff. The massive debuff here, Demonic Inquisition, with torment here. All damage is reduced by 20%, your chance to hit is reduced by 90%, and your healing done is reduced by 25%, and damage taken is increased by 90%. So if you have too much torment, you're probably going to die. Right? You want to minimize your torment gain and maximize your damage. So like everything else in Warcraft, it's all those two rules of raiding. Stand in the right spot, kill ads. Well, luckily there's no ads to kill, so just always stand in the right spot. Positioning before a DPS. Right, Fell Squall happens here, then everybody, including the melee, switch over to Atrigan. Again, don't be in front of him, because there was a fell swipe there, and then the calcified quills on the tank, and you can see everybody just annihilating Atrigan while they're being spread out. But that's it for the most part. Yeah, I like Nazgûl defensive stance too. That's a good one. Nazgûl defensive stance 2.0. Don't attack him. You know, find out who was attacking him, but you'll know, because I'm sure there'll be weak auras and DBM timers of how much torment every single player has. And if you can see players gaining torment during Fell Squall, those guys are just not paying attention. I'm sure we'll have big weak auras that say stop attacking Belak during Fell Squall. Zerania or Rolo will, I'm sure, put them together for you guys. And yeah, I mean, make sure you guys confess prior to getting 100 torment. I know it's a lot of explanations right now, but try to, and these are tips, try to get it before 100 torment, so you're not getting, you know, the debuff. There you can see him running over them, and his torment drops down, and he comes back out. So that is the drop-off point. That point where the hunter just came out of, all players come out of there. Right, just on the outside. Let's take another quick second here. So you can see him run over the balls, runs over 2 balls. I think each one drops by about 25-ish or so. Then he'll use his extra action button and come out right here. This is where all the players will come out. It's almost across from the big altar there. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, okay, so the good question is, okay, well, dots. If are dots that are ticking on him going to give me, you know, corrupt or torment? Unlikely, right? It's usually new applications of it will give you more and more and more and more, right? So if you cast Shadow Word Pain and your Moonfires and whatever else on him to give the dots, well, those give you torment, but existing bleeds and dots and things like that will not. So as long as you guys are stopping DPS and Fell Squall, kill Atrigan, stand in the right spot, it should be pretty straightforward and fairly easy enough to do for Heroic. The big challenge on this encounter will be larger raid sizes. Like most things, right? There's limited space in this encounter. Having a 30-person raid, doing split raids, normals, heroics, whatever, you'll have a lot less real estate to deal with right up here. So imagine this is, you know, 21 people here. Add 10 more people, and it's much more complicated, right? In terms of space, melee is totally fine because a lot of these things are only targeting ranged and healers. So it's, again, up to you on what you guys want to do there. But we'll see. I mean, it's something to test, though. Like, again, it's good to test on normals and heroics, Rakeem, whether your splash from your Rain of Fire is actually going to trigger it. I don't think it would, though. I think putting a new application of it would, but not the continuing damage and debuff. Okay, so that is Belak in a nutshell. Any questions from that one? If I channel Demon Fire, will it hit the wrong target? Potentially. We'll see. I mean, we'll, again, know these things as the raid starts this coming Tuesday. Unfortunately, again, we were not able to test a lot of these encounters on normal and heroic because they just didn't leave it up, right? We were able to test them on LFR, which was fine for getting to know the positionings and some of the main abilities, which is going to help a lot of our players. But this time, unlike last couple tiers, they did not leave normal up for testing for the weekend. So that is Demonic Inquisition in a nutshell. Fun little boss. Great for cleaving, ranged tanks, whatever. So ranged and melee DPS. It's good. I mean, it's a fairly straightforward single target encounter, and if you can cleave, fantastic. Cleave and get right into it. Alright, so I think that's it. Echoes of Anguish we covered as well. Yeah, the other thing is Echoes of Anguish, just make sure you're running out. So the ability here, Echoes of Anguish, make sure you run out. You saw those other guys run out to the corner and get dispelled. You may want to set up different priorities in terms of who's dispelling which group, and that usually helps a lot. Again, Pangs of Guilt was the other ability here. 3.6 million damage to each target. It does a lot of damage, so you'll need to get those interrupts, right? So when you guys are setting up interrupts, here, Demonic Inquisition, do we have interrupt set up for this one? Yeah, perfect. So we have interrupt set up already here. For this one, for instance, Tank Natoro, Zarya, Firemancer, Ariane, Indigo, and then backups and backups for these, right? Because, you know, for instance, Zarania might be down below dealing with this Torment, and Firemancer, you know, is the only person up there, so he needs to get it. Or Firemancer may miss it, well then you don't have a backup, and you know the cast doesn't get through. So it's super important that these abilities do not go through, right? Make sure you have 2 or 3 rounds of interrupters set up for every single one, and that'll make your life a lot easier, especially dealing with the heroic and mythic mechanics. So, in case you're curious, unless they changed it, Mythic version is every time you leave the cage, you spawn an ad. So that's where it's going to be really important to manage your Torment correctly. Because if you're coming out of the cage every time it's spawning an ad every time you're coming out of the cage, you're going to deal with a lot of ads, right? So you want to maximize your Torment, you know, go down there at 90, minimize your gain, and eventually clear through it. So, fun times. Fun times. All right. So we're going to move on to the next boss, which is Harjaten. Harjaten, the